Just want to say good morning and rock of the Marn to Third ID. My name is Sergeant Arjenis Nunez, and I'm here with Colonel Watts, who is going to break down to us the COVID-19 situation. He is the 3rd Infantry Division Surgeon, and we are going to learn a little bit more about what 3rd Infantry Division is doing to combat this very serious virus and how we can go forward with the information that we have available. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm great, Sergeant Nunez. Hey, everybody, Rock of the Marn. Really fired up to get everybody educated on our newest threat, the COVID-19 virus. So, Sergeant Nunez, fire away. What questions you got?
So, meat and potatoes, explain the coronavirus. What is it?
So, great question. In the most simplistic terms, a virus is a type of organism that, like any other virus that causes an infection, such as the common cold. The coronavirus comes from the family that causes the cold virus that lives specifically in the nose and the mouth and the upper throat area. And what happens is that virus, once it latches onto your body, it essentially latches onto the mouth, the nose, and the throat, and begins to cause symptoms. And those symptoms are really, in the beginning, scratchy throat, cough, like a very dry cough, and because your body is fighting an infection, fever. And that's probably the most telltale sign of the coronavirus is a fever.
And with the dry cough and the wet cough, because there are a lot of people that they might not know the difference. They just assume a cough is a cough. What is it that you mean by that?
That's a great question. Very hard to describe, but I will actually give you an example. So a dry cough is a cough such as that, where you don't really feel anything in the back of your throat coming up, and it doesn't give that gurgling in your chest. A wet cough is much more not intense, but you can feel the movement of really snot that is in your chest moving up into your throat and sometimes into your mouth. I know, pretty grotesque, but I wanted to be as specific as possible.
The soldiers need to know, the soldiers and the families and our contractors, because there's a lot of misinformation, and what we're doing, we're breaking it down right to what's factual.
Yeah.
And how does the virus spread?
Great question. So because it lives in the nose and the mouth, it really hitches a ride on your spit, okay, and the secretions from your nose. So when your nose is running, or really the saliva in your mouth, the spit in your mouth, that basically gets expelled every time you sneeze, every time you talk. And the other way that it travels is when we touch our face. So if you think to yourself, every time that you have a little bit of snot in your nose, or your lips are a little bit too wet and you don't like that, and you basically rub your face, and then now it's on your hands, and then it goes from your hands to whatever your hands touch. And you know that we use our hands for pretty much everything. So that is the most common way that it spreads, which gets to probably another question of, okay, given that information, what do we do about it, right?
And it's a tough one, because by nature, we like to engage one another. We like being in close enough proximity where we can just communicate as we normally do before all this kicked off. But tell us how we can prevent it here.
Yeah, so let me go back to your first point, and I think that's a very important point. As human beings, our natural habits form around social bonds and togetherness.
Yes.
I mean, it's what makes the Army run, honestly, and it's what makes the 3rd Infantry Division run, right? It's bringing together disparate individuals into a team and building families, right? Families amongst individuals. Yes. And so now what we're doing is we're fighting our own DNA to distance ourselves from each other, and that's a tough fight. That is a tough fight. And so, and And unfortunately, that is the most effective way to stop the spread, is to distance ourselves from one another. And that is viscerally or very internally, it feels wrong, right? Because,
Yes.
hey, the things that make me happy in a day is coming up, shaking your hand, giving you a high five, giving you a hug.
Acknowledging each other's presence.
Acknowledging each other's presence, saying, hey, Sergeant Nunez, bro, how you doing, brother?
Yeah.
I'm happy to see you, you know? And so when leaders ask brothers, soldiers, to not do that, it's hard. It's hard. And so, so the two things that I think that we really need to get out as leaders is to take a pause on that habit.
Right, right.
And until this virus basically burns itself out.
And it doesn't mean that we can't continue to be social, but the one of the tougher points is acknowledging what social distancing is, understanding it well, and not taking away from that familiarity we've built with one another and that bond that we have. It's more of a separation. But can you break down for the Third ID community just and the surrounding areas what is social distancing? What is it exactly?
Yeah, so social distancing, that's a new term that we've all become very
Yes.
familiar with over the last several weeks. So social distancing is really two things. I would look at it on an individual level. So what can we do as individuals to social distance ourselves from each other? And then the second part of the question, the second part of the definition is what can we do as an organization or as a community to set the battlefield, so to speak,
Yes.
to social distance ourselves from one another. So let's attack the first one first. So how do you social distance yourself from a peer in a one-on-one engagement? Well, really, you want to have at least 6 feet of distance away from the other person, and that's really about 2 arms lengths. And I say 2 arms lengths because some people like me have T-Rex arms, and they're very short. Some people have longer arms. So a safe distance is really 2 human being lengths arm distance. So that's how you get after this.
You're a little safer than most.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. This is how you get after this on an individual level, right? And like I said, that's tough. That's definitely a tough habit to break. So I think that that's the first thing. The second thing is setting the table as communities and units to minimize the temptation for us to interact together. So, hey, we're in the Army and we live and die by formations,
Yes.
right? It's the easiest way to count heads. Well, guess what? Having a regular interval formation, that crushes us. So when a leader basically puts a group of soldiers together in a tight box,
Yes.
a formation, we're really sort of shooting ourselves in the foot on that, right?
Counterintuitive to the fight against this
That's
pandemic.
right, absolutely. And so what we have to do as leaders, when we talk above the squad level, is stop setting the table for the virus to have its way with us, really. And you can march that all the way up. So at maybe the NCO level, it's holding that formation. At maybe let's say the division level, it's having a huge meeting with all the key leaders in it, right? So let's say a battle rhythm meeting with everybody in close proximity. And then maybe on a community level, something as very commonly done, right, is religious services.
Yes.
Right? And so these are all very hardwired into how we define life as we know it, right? And we have to change that.
Yes.
And so at each echelon, there's different mechanisms to make an intervention to decrease the risk.
Can you, well, not social distancing, sorry, isolation has been a big deal because there are those that might have to go through that. Can you explain that just a bit?
Yeah, that's I think that's a very important explanation. But before we jump to that, I do want to jump back to the gift of technology. And so some of the folks that are listening in the audience right now are asking themselves, what tools do I have?
Yes.
I'm so used to doing formations the way that we do them. I mean, I've been in the Army for, let's say, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. This has always been the way, so I'm hardwired to do that. What tools do I have to get accountability, to communicate with my soldiers, and then for soldiers to communicate with each other? And I think we do have the gift of technology, and one of the most powerful interventions that I've seen some innovative dog-faced soldiers doing is really FaceTiming more, right?
Yes.
And using their Androids or their iPhones and FaceTiming to get information out. I think really I'm actually not a big user of a lot of social media, but I think honestly social media is going to be one of the most powerful tools that keeps us connected and gives us this, quenches our thirst for togetherness.
Yes.
Right? And so we need to capitalize on that technology and use it in innovative ways. And really, I want to use this as a plea to all the younger, more experienced users of social media to help us, the senior leaders, the older individuals who aren't as savvy with social media, to get that creative disruptive solution into our mix. And so we're really asking for your help to come on the net and give us some solutions that we can scale and export out to the rest of the community. So that I wanted to make sure that I got that out to the group to really ask for your help and expertise in that area, because it's a powerful tool. Now, going back to isolation, I think that two terms that I've seen confused a lot is the terms isolation and quarantine.
Right.
So let's take a second to break those two down. First and foremost, isolation and quarantine share some common similarities. Really, they are as they sound. We're going to basically ask, and actually probably more so ask, we're going to order individuals into a confined location, okay? Sometimes it's, usually, to be honest with you, it's a barracks room or a home. And we put those restrictions in place because we either believe that you could become infected in the near future, or you are showing signs and symptoms of infection. So let me break that down a little bit further.
Yes, sir.
So quarantine, the behaviors are similar. We've put you in a room, we've said, hey, you really can't interact with your buddies, you can't interact with the rest of the larger community because you've been potentially exposed to coronavirus. It could be in you, we just don't know, and we have to have a period of waiting to see if it's going to show itself or not. And that period happens to be 14 days.
Yes.
Okay? So that's quarantine. You don't have any symptoms of coughing or fever or feeling cruddy. That's a holding pattern. We want you to circle the tower. We're not sure. You just kind of wait and isolate. I used the wrong term. You quarantine yourself away from everybody else. Isolation, on the other hand, is a little bit more drastic step. A lot of the behaviors are the same. You're still confined to your room, but now you're sick.
Oh boy.
Now you have a fever, or you're coughing, or you have nausea or diarrhea or something to that effect, and now the odds of you having coronavirus, while not absolutely 100%, are much higher than if you were in quarantine. And so we get a lot more stricter. Hopefully that clears it up. I think, though, that honestly, it's very, very difficult to grapple with the difference between those two scenarios. And we're just going to have to, on that one, we're really going to have to learn by doing and executing, talking to people that are in quarantine, watching our units enact quarantines, enact isolations, and I know we'll basically get through the differentiation as we go, but hopefully that clears things up. I think that when we talk about isolation and quarantine as well, we need to ask ourselves to really initiate that at the soldier level and not wait for a leader to have to tell you to go into quarantine or isolation.
Right.
I think if we're all going to do our part and lead from the front, if you're a soldier, any soldier, whether you're a private, a specialist, a master sergeant, a lieutenant colonel, a major general, it doesn't matter. If you feel as though you've been exposed, so come into contact, close contact within 6 feet of somebody that has COVID-19, or if you are developing symptoms, which we said the most common are that dry cough or fever, you really need to self-quarantine or isolate yourself from the pack. Right? And then notify the chain of command.
And touching on that point, that notification of the command, what will soldiers do outside of that as well if they believe they have coronavirus? Well, not just the soldiers, but the Fort Stewart Hunt Army Airfield community. What do they do?
Right. So a lot of different mechanisms there. The first thing, I think, like we said, is we have to sequester ourselves, isolate ourselves, quarantine ourselves. It's at that stage, it's all the same. It's really, we got to get away from each other and put ourselves either into our private home or into our barracks room, and then really await for further instructions. And then the question becomes, okay, so how do I get further instructions? And there's really two mechanisms that we want you to utilize, and correction, there's three mechanisms that we want you to utilize. The first mechanism is we want you to notify your chain of command. That's the first group of people that I believe that you should notify, because one, those leaders are going to do two things. One, they're going to advise you about how to seek medical help based upon your current local tactical situation, because each unit is in a different tactical setting. As we go through this and we restart training again, some will be in a training environment. Some will be doing maintenance in the motor pool. Some will be back in the barracks just hanging out.
Right.
Some will be on the weekends at home with their families, right? And so there's different tactical situations that you can find yourself in, and I believe that the first thing that you do after you isolate or quarantine yourself is to basically call your chain of command, and then they will give you further instructions. Now, they can basically tell you to go to the Consolidated Fever Clinic, which is located in Sparta, where we'll take a comprehensive look at you medically. That's manned 24/7, and you can do that.
You mean 2nd Brigade compound, the Spartan 2nd
That's
Brigade
right.
compound?
Spartan 2nd Brigade compound, correct, that's right. The second thing that they might advise you to do is they might advise you to stand fast, and they'll send a medic, 68 whiskey, to your location to take a temperature, or they will advise you to go to the TMC, depending upon where you are. Okay, so that's I really think that's the best first step, because your first line leader, they're going to know your tactical situation.
Yes.
And I think that that's very, very important here, is understanding the tactical situation, because if you don't understand that piece, some of the other interventions will not be able to be applied to the current tactical situation,
right.
especially as we ramp this up. So I think that's really the first thing that I would do. And to equate that to what we've been trained to do, I've been thinking a lot about this. And so, one of the things that we've taught a lot of soldiers how to do is how to stop bleeding on the battlefield, right?
That's a big one.
Right, okay, so we all carry tourniquets when we're downrange, and we are all trained on how to apply that tourniquet, stop the bleeding, which is stabilize ourselves in this situation, and then the next thing that we do is we essentially seek cover and concealment, right? And then the third thing that we do is we radio for help, either through calling out for that 68 Whiskey medic or calling in a medevac, right? And so I want everybody to understand that this is really no different. It's a different threat, but the process and principles are still the same, right? You feel unwell, you basically seek cover and concealment, which is put yourself in your barracks room or your residence, and then you call that 9-line medevac, which is to your chain. You call for your chain of command, who's going to call that 9-line medevac to get you the help you need. Sometimes it'll come by ground, sometimes it'll come by air. Again, all depending upon the tactical situation. And so that first line supervisor, they're going to know. They're going to know.
Same principles.
Same principle.
Different environment.
Different environment, different threat. Same principles.
And should we be wearing face masks? Is that a thing for us to
good question, right? Because it's all over the news, right? Every news story that you see on TV or on the internet is pictures of people going to the grocery store with their face masks on or full body suits on and such. And so the answer to that is no. Actually, it's no. Really, the folks that need to wear the personal protective equipment are individuals such as healthcare workers, because they are exposed a lot to potential secretions and spit and stuff from people that might have the virus. So those folks, you'll see them all gowned up and stuff. But for day-to-day activities, when you're not feeling sick, you just got to go on and drive on, and it will be okay. It'll be okay. Because really, this virus is not transmitted by air, okay? It's transmitted by the spit that hangs in the air. Right? Okay? And so, for example, we're about 6 feet apart from each other right now. It's the first thing that I looked at when I sat down. Notice I'm a little bit back on my chair. You're a little bit back in your chair. And so as I'm talking, especially the more excited I get, I'm spitting little bits, right? So in this space right here, there's spit hanging in the air. I know that's gross, but that's the reality of the situation. And so as long as you are over there, away from my little cloud of spit,
keeping a safe distance,
keeping that social distancing, we're good to go. You've got your cloud right here. I don't even want to get into it. And then I've got my cloud right here. Done. And then, of course, so the mask it's not going to help us with that, right? Now let's talk about, again, let's go back to, because it's so important. We talked about the cloud of spit here and the cloud of spit over there. Now, how many times did you touch your face during this podcast?
With my sleeve on, about 3 times, and then without, I want to say at least twice.
Yeah, I concur.
Naturally,
Natural, right?
Naturally.
And so, hey, listen, in the back of my mind, I am telling myself as we've done this whole thing, don't touch your face, don't touch your face, don't touch your face, right? To myself. And so I noticed that you touched your face, right? So now that that cloud, that's on your hand.
Yes.
Right? And so the importance of having that hand sanitizer on your person to say, oh crap, touch my face again. Put the hand sanitizer on, great, I'm back to clean. My little grabbers here are not going to go infect the doorknob or this paper or what have you.
And what you bring up a really, really strong point, the hand sanitizer use. That's something clearly across the force we should be utilizing daily after touching our faces as I did. See, you see how great.
You're doing great though.
And as well as, you know, when we're touching different things, doorknobs, our computers, our phones. Now, there might be a misconception. Is hand sanitizer stronger to use than, water and soap? Or should it just be used in tandem? You wash your hands, sanitize. How does that work?
Yeah, so I think that it's no different. Me personally, I will tell you personally, I actually like soap and water better. I'm not saying that any one is better than the other, but if you ask me and say, hey, Colonel Watts, you know, what do you prefer personally? I'm a hand washing guy, but again, I'm sort of an older doctor, and so we're in the habit already of washing our hands like crazy.
Yes.
And so it's already a habit for me. I know younger generation is a little bit more on the hand sanitizer, and both are just as good. I mean, honestly.
What's immediate and what's readily available.
What's available and what the habit is.
Right, sir.
Just do whatever works.
And are there any treatments currently available for coronavirus?
No, there's no treatment specifically for coronavirus. But I will tell you, I mean, there's a lot of research that's being done just in the last couple weeks. Really, in the last couple weeks, large medical entities, institutions have already done really solid research looking at different types of drugs that are used to combat other viruses.
Yes.
Unfortunately, those have been ineffective, but everybody needs to feel comfortable that the infrastructure is there to answer the question.
Right. And sir, really all the information that you've provided today has been absolutely wonderful. It is exactly what the Third ID community needs, so that way we can continue to move forward collectively in the fight against COVID-19. But do you have anything you'd like to add? Any additional information we may not have hit? Thoughts?
I think that other than remembering that our primary mission is to keep America safe and to over-communicate with your chain of command, with your buddies, about what's troubling you, and questions that are unanswered. I think those are the key things that I want to get across. A lot is unknown about the virus. A lot is unknown about how we, as the world, the United States, Georgia, the 3rd Infantry Division, is going to respond to the threat, the virus. But I think that really we have to stay together at a safe social distance and keep talking to each other and keep having conversations about this so that we can ensure that all the facts are known, all the questions are answered, and everybody feels comfortable. Because really, right now, the biggest hurdle that we have to get through is fear. And the best way to attack fear is through knowledge. And it's our responsibility, people like you and me,
yes, sir,
to spread that knowledge. So I would ask everybody that's listening to come up on the net and ask the questions. And if we're not getting out the information to you in the right medium, tell us. We'll change the medium.
Yes.
Okay? If what I do for the next several months is just do podcasts or just do Instagram or just do Facebook,
yes, sir,
it's worth it.
Absolutely.
It's worth it. because really the fight to win this is at the individual soldier level. And if we arm the soldier, the individual soldier, with knowledge, we can't lose.
I agree, sir. I want to thank you. I want to thank Colonel James Watts for joining us here and giving us this information that we really, really needed. For more information on the 3rd Infantry Division's actions against COVID-19 and additional information that comes down from the Central for Disease Control, visit our Fort Stewart Hunter Army Airfield 3rd Infantry Division page. And we also have the Fort Stewart app. You will see right as you open it, the first icon will say COVID-19. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, sir. And we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Hey, team, Rock of the Marn.
For more information on COVID-19, visit home.army.mil/Stewart.